Well, I installed all the bolts that hold that bottom piece in, and when I took the 4 bolts out, I noticed that one of the bolts was shorter than the other 3, which I didn't notice when I was taking them out. But luckily for me, if you look from the underside, there's actually a recess that one of those Allen head cap screws sits in, and the other 3 aren't recessed. So that's what clued me into the fact that that's where the short one goes. So I got that all bolted up. I've actually still got it right now on this supported partly by this 2x4. So now if I install the shaft there and the handle and all that, I should be able to crank up on the elevation screw and take the weight off of that 2x4. And I also started cleaning the ways. So this side I've already done, and it came out pretty well. And you can see it had light rust on it like this. And I tried a couple different things, and what I found worked really well actually is this ZEP 45NC penetrating lubricant. I sprayed this on and just let it sit for a few seconds, and then used a Scotch-Brite pad and rubbed it off, and that cleaned up really well. So I'm going to do that, finish doing that. Then I'm going to, down inside there in that dark area where you can't see, there's some swarf and stuff down there. I'm going to vac that out. Well, I vacked out the knee and I vacked out the ram, and I just cleaned this part right here. This cleaned up really nice, and then right here, this was rust. I cleaned the rust off, and you can see why it was rust. It's the only area where the paint was worn off from years of flipping this dial, I guess, and rubbing up against there. Well, assembly of this, basically I've got to take this off. There's a little bit of swarf in there. We'll clean all that out. That allows this dial to pull off. Of course, we've got this plastic shim. Then the dial. Two more plastic shims. And I guess we won't take it apart any further than that, because I can see that gives me access to the holes. But I am going to clean. You can actually see there's all swarf stuck right in there. So I'm going to clean all that out. Right now, it's supper time. I'll pick this up in a minute. Well, installing this couldn't be easier. It basically just slides in. I never even took the key out of the groove or the slot on this shaft. So all I've got to do is get it lined up and push it in. And then 4 short hex screws, which I had these in a jar. Luckily I labeled, put a piece of paper in there telling me that the 4 short ones were for this, and that the 4 long ones are for the saddle. And I'm going to put this, not sure it matters which way this goes. Betting it doesn't, so I'm going to put that worn area facing down. And get these all started before I attempt to tighten any one of them all the way down. Oh, there you go, there's a perfect reason right there. Looks like there's a line right there that I think the dial lines up with, and that's probably, so I probably have this the right way. Now you can see why I didn't want to tighten that one down until I got them all started. Now I brushed off the swarf that was visible on this thing before I bolted it on, and now it's funny that somehow a couple more little bits just showed up. Alright, now these two plastic washers go on first, then the dial, Then another plastic washer, and then this locking nut, which I'm going to clean that out a little bit with a brush. And so the way this works is you just loosen this knurled knob, you rotate your dial to 0 for instance. Of course there's a knurled knob to hold this from moving, so that once you have it there, you want to zero it in. This just slides on. I'm going to clean that shaft up. There's a little flash rust on that and on this bore that is causing it to bind a little bit. There we go. Where's that noise coming from? Where's that singing? That's driving me nuts. That's it. That's a bearing in there. Well, I oiled the elevation screw and that isn't doing it. So I'm not quite sure what's making that noise. This bevel gear that the shaft goes into, the pinion, that actually rides in a bearing too. So I don't think either one of these bearings are making the noise. And there's a bearing underneath here, underneath this other bevel gear. I'm not quite sure what that noise is from. I'm going to, I'm getting ready to put these plates on, but before I do that, I've decided I do want to put some grease on those teeth of those two gears where they mesh. So I'm just using a lubrimatic white lithium grease. It's only when I go high speed that it seems to do it. Ah, there we go. It almost seems like it had something to do with those gears. Now that I put grease on them, they're quieting down. Doesn't do it going up. I got that jib pretty loose right now, so I'm not surprised if this is moving. Yeah, see it? It's interesting. Well, I figure out how these plates go and clean them up. Clean them up first. Well, it's obvious which side of this one was facing up. Now it's got flash rust on it. That doesn't. This is a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle figuring this out. Should have labeled these plates, but looking at this one, I could see the ghost outline right here. This is clearly where this was sitting on this roughly cut out section of the casting right here. All of this rust damage that was right here was water that had gotten underneath here and sat under there and rusted. So this pattern matches this pattern that I cleaned up, and that line right there matches this edge. So I know that this was definitely the bottom plate in the front here. So I could start with that, and I think I've got an idea what's going on back here. I would clean those, but I'm going to clean this one up and place it in the front. Alright, I'm not positive, but I think I've got these plates on here right. Because I think the way it works is the saddle sits on top of here, and when it gets to a certain point here, it'll start pushing on this pin, and that'll cause this to go like this. Why do I think that's not supposed to come out like that though? Let's see. That's supposed to come out like that? And this is sticking right here because this top plate is hitting a little damaged area right there on the way. I took a heck of a ding at some point there because it's got a matching ding across from it on that side. I mean, the only thing I know for sure is that this plate is definitely the one that goes here. And I know this plate has to go on the bottom. So logic would dictate this other plate that has this slot like this would be the back one. So then it's just a matter of how do these go. Now this jog and the cutout right here is clearly to grab one of these two pins. So if I put it like this, it won't go. That won't work. If I put it like this, it won't work. If I put it like this, it does. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So it's got to be this way. Doesn't work that way. It's got to be this way. This is the only way this one fits on this side. What about this one? Well, that one works that way. Yeah, this one only works this way. So either this one goes this way, or this one goes this way. So it either goes like this, still hanging up there in that bad spot. This has got a bevel right here, and I would think that the bevel would face up, but there's no combination that I can put these in to make that bevel face up. That bevel has to face down. So if I do it like this, get the same problem still. If I do this, interestingly enough, that doesn't hang up on that anymore. So that's that might be a good indicator that that's the way this is supposed to go. And the only problem with that is I could see what looks like rub marks here. Oh, but that would actually be the saddle, because the saddle's gonna move over, rub on this to a certain point, I think. Aha! The underside of the saddle actually gives a clue. There is a slot right here. And that slot that's machined into the bottom of the casting for the saddle is probably where those pins are allowed to ride back and forth, and then they hit these end pieces right here, and that's what allows them to get hooked and move those plates. Now I know that this is the front because the lock is on the front here for the table. So that means that standing in front of the machine, that slot needs to be on the left hand side. So the way I have it right now appears to be correct. because I have the 2 pins are on the left hand side where they can run in that slot. Pins on the wrong side and hitting over here for some reason, digging in. So that's that. Now that brings up a good point. It's going to be a lot easier for me to get that saddle onto here and past these pins if I take that one of those clips off. Matter of fact, I'm not even quite sure how I got that to come off. I guess when I pulled up the saddle this way, they all just kind of slid out with it. That must be what happened. As I got the saddle all the way down here to the end, these plates would come off. But if I want to leave these plates in position, I could just do it that way. That's what I'm going to do. In preparation for installing the saddle, I cleaned it up a bit. I cleaned off the bottoms here. I cleaned these channels out pretty well. I'm going to vac out any debris that's in here inside these wells of these castings. I also took off this this whole assembly here, which apparently what this is these are wipers, and there was quite a bit of debris and stuff stuck in these. I just cleaned this up really nice. Here's a big bump, dent right there, and I could see a mark right there, and it tells me more than likely at some point those plates were banged and the pin that rides in here came right down and pushed on that and bent that out. So I'm just going to take a mallet and on the flat spot on the top of my bench vise, I'm going to flatten that out. Now I don't think, if I leave these off like my plan is, I don't think I can just lower these on. No, I can't. So what I'm going to do, this is the first one to go on, and this is the side that faces the saddle. So I'm going to put this on like this, and just leave it back there loose. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other pieces, and then that way I could just slide them back over and screw them onto the back of the saddle after the saddle's installed. Alright, so got this in position. And I know this, the other way that I know that this is facing the right way is because this hole on this side is where you make the jib adjustments. So that has to be on this side, which means this half piece is going to go in here. And so then this goes like this. Alright, so now I could put the saddle on right now if I wanted to, because I don't need to take the front wiper assembly off to slide the saddle onto the knee, but I'm going to take it off just because there was so much garbage behind that last one. I want to clean up the front one too. Alright, I'm getting ready to make the move on the installation of the saddle, and I've decided not to use the crane. The saddle is light enough that I can lift it. It's heavy, but it's light enough. It just occurred to me that I haven't put the lead screw in for the crossfeeder. Okay.